So before this review starts, I'd like to quickly go over some channel news. If you're only interested in watching the review, then go to this part of the video here. If you're watching this video in summer of 2021 and actually care enough to get updates on the channel, then I'd just listen in here for a minute or two. The long and short of what I want to mention is that I want to strictly control the kind of content that I'm uploading to YouTube. While I love making other kind of content like tutorials, game guides, game news, and well, meme videos, ultimately it strays away from what I'm passionate about and it deviates from the motives I originally had when starting this channel in the first place. I still haven't got a proper solution for how I want to go about this and might bring back new kinds of content on this channel, or maybe even go for a new channel in the future. But for now, expect to see a lot of review and retro game content. I think hopping between massive types of content really burns you out of multiple things and takes the energy away from contributing lots of motivation into one field. So TLDR, I wanted to do too much and ended up getting nothing done. Also, I've been focusing on finishing my first year of university, which I have done now, in addition to getting things sorted with moving house and getting new equipment. That's all I have to say for here, but if you have any questions about this or what I'm doing now, you can ask me in my Discord server or leave a comment on the video. Now on with the review. Crash Bandicoot for the PlayStation. The first Crash Bandicoot game to be birthed onto this planet, and arguably the strongest flag bearer for 3D platforming as a genre, right up there next to Mario 64. Naughty Dog were the innovators that created this absolute crumpet of a craft back in 1996, and it was published like almost every other game at the time, Universal Interactive Studios. Upon starting the game, you're immediately shown a cutscene of a small yellow man conducting experiments on a Bandicoot in a lab room. The Bandicoot manages to escape, but this guy, whose name is Dr. Cortex, still has Crash's girlfriend to operate on. Sure. Anyway, the story here is irrelevant. We're here for Crash and platforming. Crap-plash-forming. When you gain control of Crash at the beach, he has very basic movements. He can walk around in 8 directions, jump and spin, which is all you need in a platformer to be honest. But this lets you know from the get-go that things are going to be simple. Simple, but in the fun way. See, what isn't obvious at first is that by limiting the options for movement and play, this lets the game create challenging platforming through hazards in the environment and newer mechanics in the platforming. And does Crash 1 do it well? Well, to an extent, it's great to see side-scrolling levels and boulder run levels, but for the most part you'll be staring down Crash's crack. The game definitely creates a nice amount of variety with this, having levels that focus on verticality like the Great Wall and Slippery Climb, and levels that keep a fixed forward-facing cam with no turning or little horizontal movement, like Road to Nowhere and Toxic Waste. Although it has to be said that Crash can feel very bulky and clunky to move about, and even feel floaty at times. It can make jumps that would normally be easy to make feel way more difficult than they actually are, and put an even higher emphasis on the shadow below you, which, by the way, makes the game infinitely harder when that shadow is missing. Anyway, the hazards that the game implements into the stages fit the theme and create challenging platforming, like scientists in the labs, jungle monsters like monkeys and lizards in the temple levels, and tribesmen and man-eating plants in the jungle levels. The most important part of every level are the boxes. Every level contains a series of crates that can contain an Aku mask to grant another health state, a number of Wumpa fruits that can be stacked to earn an extra life, or the box can be a TNT crate that will detonate and damage you if you break it by spinning it. The boxes can incorporate platforming puzzles, which are actually apparent from the very first level. If you can get to the end of a level without dying and breaking every box, then you can get a gem, which, well, you must be a different breed to do. Thankfully, in the Insane Trilogy remake, you can do this while dying, you just need to break every box. But don't look past this, it makes replaying the original on a PS1 or emulator an absolute nightmare, and it's one of the main reasons that the game doesn't hold up very well today. The map is split into 3 islands with roughly 10 levels per island and some bosses scattered about there. Later Crash games would go on to prefer a warp room instead for level selection, but there's something so 90s about using a map to travel like this. Still not as good as a seamless transition between levels, which I'm a very big fan of in games by the way. The map is split into 3 islands with roughly 10 levels per island and some bosses scattered about there. Speaking of bosses, they're not really much to be afraid of. They incorporate challenge sufficiently while all differing from one another with slight adjustments. For example, bosses like Papu Papu, Pinstripe and Koala Kong all see you evading the boss attacks and performing a basic attack to damage the boss, with the fight getting progressively harder as the end draws near. However, boss fights like Ripper Root and Neo Cortex take the fight in their own directions, implementing unique challenge in the form of an emphasis on timing and keeping track of the battlefield simultaneously. I'm putting this in a very delicate form here. Crash 1 is not known for any renowned boss fights. However, that doesn't mean they're awful, and they definitely paved the path in the right direction for Naughty Dog to create much more entertaining and challenging boss fights in later games. When you decide you've had enough of your game and you want to save and quit out for a little bit, you'd probably be surprised to not see a save menu. Yes. In order to save the game, you need to get to a level with a specific bonus stage, roughly one in every 2-3 levels, find 3 icons to enter the bonus stage, and then beat it. Only then will the game present you with the option to save the game. And only then can you put the game off and go to sleep. Yes, I'm well aware that it's 2 in the morning, but I actually can't go to bed because I need to stay up and play Crash Bandicoot, so this game was literally the I can't pause it of games before the online era. For the time it was made though, Crash 1 looks impressive to say the least. The detail isn't found in the range of colours, but instead found in the small details in the environment. The stuff you see off stage that you don't really interact with. Enemy variety that changes with the level theme really helps bring the environments to life here, and the music only serves to promote the atmosphere being created in these levels. I've been using music for this game throughout the whole review, and while the choice of music isn't as impressive as you'd see with games like Spyro and Rayman, it's still very ambient music and very distinct at that. Because the music is crafted in such a way as to promote the atmosphere, as previously mentioned, it gives Crash music a distinct ring and makes it easily recognisable. It lets itself and the art style age well, even if the game doesn't necessarily. This is why you'll hear a lot more casual talk of people praising Crash 1 without distinctly remembering anything negative about the platforming or save system. Nostalgia, ladies and gentlemen. I say nostalgia, but if you know me at all, you know that, yeah, I'm not nostalgic for Crash 1. The first Crash game that I played to completion, and in fact first played at all, was Wrath of Cortex, which I have relatively mixed opinions about, as expressed in my review, which you'll find in the cards. I have nostalgia for Wrath of Cortex, but there's nothing to be immediately recognised as nostalgic material. In other terms, there's a lack of originality in this game, whereas Crash 1 checks all the boxes. My only peep with the game visually though is, as I mentioned, the limited range of colours. I feel like Crash 1 in particular feels very washed compared to the later Crash games colour-wise. Everything in Crash 1 just feels, I don't know, it feels very odd. I feel like looking at any level there's a good chance that the level sticks to the same set of colours that isn't really unique, or it attempts to obscure this flaw by dimming the lighting substantially. This doesn't really make the game bad or anything, but stands as one of the reasons why I prefer playing the N. remake nowadays, as opposed to the original PS1 game. However, this is a review of the original game, not the remake. That may come at a later time. Although Crash 1 isn't my personal favourite out of the original 3 PS1 games, I can still heavily appreciate how the gameplay found throughout the entire game remains faithful to its signature formula. Later instalments of the Crash Bandicoot series began to expand upon the core gameplay in an effort to stop it becoming stagnant, but this left the effect of only about half the total number of levels containing vanilla platforming, like we see in 99% of the levels found in Crash 1. But hey, this is a Crash 1 review. We'll give the other Crash games their time on the stage at their due date. For now, let's talk about another feature of levels that this game has compared to its later counterparts. Crash 1 not only lets you take your time with the platforming, letting you take your own approach to the game, but it encourages it. Levels like Slippery Climb, Sunset Vista and Temple Ruins make you wait on platforms, and if you try and be hasty then it makes the game 10 times harder than it needs to be. This doesn't make the game's style of platforming inherently better or worse, but merely appeals to a different playstyle. I personally prefer the fast-paced playstyle of later Crash games, and if you're a person that has their patience tested easily, then this game might get under your skin just a little bit. Honestly, I think Crash 1 stands as an all-time classic in the 3D platforming game genre, an absolute staple on the PS1's library of games, and it's arguably what made the console sell as much as it did. I'd definitely put Sony on the map for its competitors. Is Crash 1 a good game? Yeah, definitely. You can't really go wrong with it, and it's always a fun time to play with friends. Difficulty spikes can be challenging, but only add to the enjoyment of the game. Unless you'd rather have a piss easy platformer, then go ahead and play one of these games. That being said, the difficulty can present issues with the game holding up, and although you can't necessarily go wrong with playing the game, it should definitely be played and recognised as a classic rather than a modern hit. And that's all for Crash Bandicoot 1. Thank you to all my subscribers for supporting my channel, and if you'd like to support me yourself, you can do it for the low price of nothing but love. Just head on over to the button down below and hit that sub button to get notified on new uploads in the future. We just hit 600 subs and I'm hoping to hit 1,000 by the end of the year. Leave a like on the video if you want to see the Crash 2 review, and be sure to check out my social media links in the description. My name is Flynny, and this has been a review of Crash 1 for the PlayStation. Thank you ever so much for watching, and take care.